Hey, I'm Wajahat Ali, your friendly neighborhood host and invader. Born and raised in the Bay Area, California. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Melania Trump, Senator Raphael Edward Ted Cruz. All of them immigrants, all of them American. But not every immigrant gets to be American. The rest of us are called illegal aliens. A swarm, a wave, coming on a caravan from shithole countries to replace Western civilization and replace white people. Nah, we've just come here to make your life delicious. To help you stop worrying and learn to love the invasion, I'll be joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Maria Hinojosa. But first, a public service announcement. And now, this week in white journalism. I may not be here to replace white people, but I am here to replace white journalism. Now, I'm not talking about right-wing propaganda news like Fox or Newsmax. I'm going to show you headlines from mainstream media outlets. Unfortunately, some of the biggest proponents of what I call white journalism. First up, the editorial board of the Washington Post. Let's read the headline. A migrant surge is coming at the border, and Biden is not ready. A surge, a military term to describe people, something to terrify us. A surge of families, communities, desperate to find a new home, bunch of folks trying to make it in America, like so many immigrants before us. I think we can do better. Let me take out my trusty pen and fix this headline. Delete. How about instead, immigrants are arriving at the border, and America needs them to save this country. That works. All right, New York Times is next. A migrant wave tests New York City's identity as the world's sanctuary. New York wants to welcome new immigrants. Its economy and vibrancy depend on them. But an influx has strained a social safety net already on the brink. Whew. Okay, first off, New York Times, props, well done. You acknowledge immigrants as helping the economy, and you used an SAT word, vibrancy, 5 points. But this word wave here, huh? When I think of waves, I think of tidal waves, climate change, destruction, and invasion. Not too welcoming for the sanctuary city. I think we can do better. Let's delete this and instead make a better headline, which is a little bit more factual. How about racist GOP governor exploits plight of immigrants as political pawns, sends them to New York City instead of welcoming them in Texas. And let's just throw this one in. New York finds a way to integrate them as it always has. Now, you're looking at this right now, you're thinking, Waj, but what about the open porous borders? What about national security? I got you, I'm with you. However, we have used criminalized language to describe migrants for the past 40 years, and yet somehow, white journalism has turned a blind eye to the number one domestic terror threat in America, white supremacist terrorism. No headlines about invasions, nothing about waves and surges of white violence. Maybe, just maybe, we should have some equal standards and do a better job. And this has been This Week in White Journalism. And my first guest for Waj Invades America is Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Maria Hinojosa, the founder of Futuro Media, the co-host of In the Thick podcast. She is also the author of this lovely book, Once I Was You, and she's an OG with credits that include hosting a show on NPR, HBO,
and CNN. I did the top of the head. Do I get some props for that?
Dude, that was really good.
Thank you. This is why they pay me the big money, and the big money is a falafel sandwich, and I'm grateful.
That's why people are upset, because you're taking away their work.
I'm replacing them. This used to be Charlie Rose, and now it's me.
Oh my God, you brought up Charlie Rose.
Without the scandal.
Woo!
That was a trigger right at the top.
Wow.
All right. Thank you for joining us. You have a Pulitzer glow about you. We're going to get into it in a second. I'm going to hit you with a survey that came out. And I just want to let it marinate for a second. NPR survey came out earlier this year that said over half of Americans, I'm going to quote them, quote, more than half of Americans say there is an invasion at the southern border, part of a broader decline in support for immigrants overall. Also, the stereotypes or misconceptions of immigrants, specifically the ones coming at the Mexican border, are that they smuggle illegal drugs and they're likely to use public benefits. Now, just let that poll simmer for a second. I'm going to ask you a question. There's a rumor that you, Maria, actually came here to America as an immigrant from Mexico City. Is this rumor true?
It's factually correct.
That is a factually correct. Okay, wait. When you came to Hyde Park as a young Mexican girl with your father, who was a doctor.
In Chicago, yes.
In Chicago, were you all planning to conquer and enslave the white people and replace Western civilization?
Well, first we had to get rid of the tons of cocaine that we were smuggling. Cocaine. And then we were going to figure out how to take over the south side of Chicago. You know, when you say those statistics and those polls and those, it's just, my dad came because he was the nerdiest Mexican you could imagine.
Paint the picture of the nerdiest Mexican for us.
So, a small town, Mexico, Tampico, on the Gulf Coast. And mind you, there was no air conditioning in the university libraries or anything like that. And it was really hot. And my dad is like, I want to become a medical doctor who is dedicated to investigation and spends all of his time in a library that is without air conditioning. And let's see, I want to help create something that is going to help people who are born deaf to hear if they want to.
Like the conquistadors of the past. Same template.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take... So, yeah, that was my dad. That was his dream. And Dad actually didn't want to leave Mexico. My dad was my dad was a little bit suspicious about the United States. Why? Because the first time my father came by land and had to travel from Mexico through Texas, you know, and the impression in Mexico is that the United States is a very modern, advanced country. But my dad gets out to use the bathroom, you know, the bus stops. Yeah. And he's like, goes to the bathroom in Texas. He's like, ¿Qué es esto? One is for colored and the other one is for white. And my dad is like, what is going on in this country? And I think, you know, and he had to choose, right? And that was the other thing is that he chose privilege, right? He was like, you know, I think I can pass. I'm just going to, and I think it really sat with him in a very negative way that he was going to attempt to pass, that he was being erased as a brown man who spoke Spanish. And I think he was kind of like, will there be a day when there's like colored, white, Mexican? And when you say the things that you just said,
I did not say that. The poll said it, but yeah.
Okay.
It hits you though.
It does, absolutely, because this is what I've been fighting against my whole life. And it's just like, okay, cue the fight. We're going to go back and keep on doing what we've been doing.
So you mentioned you've been fighting this your whole life, right? And I'm gonna be your Flava Flav, pre-VH1 Flava Flav hype man for you. There's another rumor that you turned 60 recently. Is this correct?
Correct.
And I'm only saying that because I saw an Instagram post. So I'm like, I'm not being, you know.
It's true.
Yes, okay, it's true. You flexed with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's proud of it. You've been here for over 5 decades. You have achieved the American dream. You've worked harder than anyone else. I gave that impressive intro. PBS, CNN, right? You've written 3 books. This is your latest book, right? You've won a Pulitzer, pinky in the mouth, right? You've married, you got kids, your kids are in college. You have achieved the American dream. You have achieved this success. And still, in 2022, people will hear that origin story that you just gave me and said, Maria, she's an invader. When will it end? When will it be enough? What more do you have to do, you, Maria, to be seen as American?
So there was a dude, his name is Samuel Huntington.
I know this dude.
Okay, from Harvard. Okay, wrote a big tome called Who Are We? And basically, I don't remember what the subtitle was, but basically, Latinos are coming to take all your shit, change the language, and fuck everybody over.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, okay?
Yeah.
But in Harvard.
In
language.
Harvard legalese, yeah.
In Harvard
in
legalese.
fancy white.
Fancy white, but it was also like, everybody was like, shit, Samuel Huntington is saying this, oh my God.
And this is the late 20th century for the nerds who don't know Samuel Huntington.
Correct. So it's the year 2004, and I go to interview Samuel Huntington at Harvard. And I said, Mr. Professor Huntington, how many immigrants do you hang out with kind of on a daily basis? You know, how many do you interact with? How many are your friends? And he was like, what kind of a question is this? You know, I'm a Harvard academic. I don't need to hang out with any immigrants.
Damn it.
God damn it. And so he just said, none. I mean, thankfully.
Did he actually say that?
He said that. He was like, no, none. And I was like, huh. Interesting, because you know, Professor Huntington, every single day of my life I'm with immigrants. Every single day of my life I hear stories about immigrants, from immigrants, to immigrants, my whole life.
Yeah.
And not once have I heard an immigrant, not a Mexican immigrant, say, oh yeah, we're gonna cross over to take over, man. We're gonna take over, we're gonna change everything. I said, never. I said, have you ever, Professor Huntington, have you ever heard those words come out of an immigrant's mouth? And he said, no. So, you know, what ended up happening actually is I went back to CNN and I said to my executive producer, I have Samuel Huntington. I got the got you. I got the absolute got you. And my white executive producer said, go back and interview him again. He must have misspoken.
Wow. Wow. And was he giving him cover, or do you think it was the powers that be that wanted him to look good? Because this is the same Samuel Huntington, for the nerds who don't know, that came out with the Clash of Civilizations thesis that fueled the war on terror.
Exactly. No, I think we ended up not going back. I don't even know if we used him in the documentary that I did for CNN. We may have used one soundbite. But I think it was more the power, and that's going to the broader issue, right? Which is, look, we have a lot of colleagues who are white men, and we love and adore them, and they're our friends.
Some
and
of our favorite colleagues are white men.
And they work with us, and we love them. But also, white men basically run the mainstream media.
Some would say they run everything.
Okay, yes.
Some would say.
Ka-ching. But in terms of the media, 100%.
Yeah.
And so the white men who are our ages, basically, younger, maybe a little bit older, but they've been educated in the United States under the same kind of narrative against immigrants for the last 50 years. They've been consuming the media that has been saying immigrants, ooh, bad. Then they get into positions of power in the media and they're like, see, we got to keep on saying because immigrants are bad. The question is, where's the proof?
Right.
And when we look at the proof, right, it shows immigrants are less criminal.
Right.
Than
Foreign-born individuals in America commit less crimes, and they're a boon to the economies of the communities that they go to, again and again and again and again.
Again and again and again.
The Bush administration, the second Bush administration, not a fan of Muslims, but even that Bush administration, the old school Republicans, even Reagan, pro-amnesty, pro-immigration.
Very much so.
So you've been in the thick of it. You were a young Latina, CNN, PBS, HBO, pre-George Floyd, pre-DEI. Right? And I want to take that DeLorean back 20 years, 30 years.
Okay.
How was it being oftentimes the only Latina in a room full of whites when they were framing immigration stories?
Look, the framing for me was, okay, you could sit here and look at how weird this situation is, right? That I'm the first Latina, right, in these newsrooms where I was in most
First,
of the newsrooms.
you knew for a fact.
The first. And I could sit there and just be like, oh my God, this is so trippy. But what really happened was I understood my privilege. And I was like, okay, I'm in these halls, right? I'm here at NPR. I'm here at CNN. I don't have time to be thinking about how strange this is or how out of place I feel. I was like,
You got to get to work.
I have responsibility.
That's right.
If I am the first and if I'm going to be in this, then I have to use my voice. And so that's how I would go into the news meetings. I'd just be terrified because you're the first one and they're all talking about, hoity-toity ways about this and that, New York Times and the New Yorker, and I'm just like, ugh. And I would just force myself. I would literally hold my hand up with this arm because I was scared. I didn't want to be in the newsroom saying, hi, Salvadoran refugees in Washington, D.C., the largest group, or, any, fill in the blank, any story about Latinos or Latinas. And they would just kind of look at me a little strange. But then I just did the work, which is what immigrants do, right? We just put our heads down and we're just like, and the work itself started to speak for itself. And so that's how I was able to manage getting through those moments. But the amount of ridiculous bullshit that I heard from people, my colleagues, about immigrants.
Give me a gem.
Well, this one is about Latinos and Latinas in a community known as the South Bronx. I happen to have I have an affinity for communities that are kind of thrown under the bus. And I think the South Bronx is one of those communities that's always been perceived as like really scary and dangerous, but I actually love that community. I was there reporting about very bad heroin, and I went back to NPR in DC, and a very famous NPR personality said, "Oh, Maria, you were in the South Bronx. Weren't you terrified?" And I was like, "No, I've lived in those communities and I hang out in those communities." And she just couldn't believe that. Waj, the question that I would have asked is, why didn't she ask me if I was terrified the first time that I stepped foot into NPR?
That's right.
That was scary. That was a cultural context that I didn't understand. But hanging out in the South Bronx, being a journalist speaking Spanish, 100%.
Was NPR, when you first went there, an ocean of whiteness?
Yes.
A river of whiteness or a pond of whiteness?
Ocean.
Ocean. So you're like this, you're like the old man
Ocean.
in the sea. Like
Ocean.
There was just like, they're just,
Ocean.
because when I'm in those spaces, and we've been lucky with our career, oftentimes when you peel back the curtain and you see the wizards are all white. And oftentimes they're like, I'm the darkest thing in the room. And you just hug the rug, because the rug's the only thing of color. There's like a plant and a rug. And like, so did you even have a plant? Or like, were you just the one?
Every black colleague who worked at NPR at the time, because there were a few, they were my magnet.
That's what I thought,
one of
yeah.
my best friends, Sandy Ratley, was one of the first executives, black news executives. So that was who I was drawn to, were my black colleagues, who of course opened the doors. And Sandy famously told me, just pick your battles. You're not going to be able to win them all.
Because you don't have the equity also.
Correct.
Right.
So it gave me context to understand. But I like to talk about that responsibility because as journalists who are not white, we do have a real responsibility about correcting the narrative. And I take that really seriously.
This is going to be a new segment. It's going to be fun.
Okay.
Don't think too much. Be as honest as you can. You're always honest. First impressions. I'm going to say a word. Hit me with your first thoughts.
Oh my God.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Uh-huh.
Congressman Henry Cuellar.
Somebody who was doing the right thing, attempting to be representative.
Jessica Cisneros.
Somebody who's attempting to change the narrative?
Mexican pizza.
No.
Trader Joe's guacamole.
No.
Spicy Cheetos.
Okay. On occasion. I mean, how did it happen? How did they get made? We can debate that, but yeah, I'll eat spicy Cheetos, yes.
Conservative Latino.
A lot of what the future looks like.
AOC.
Hopefully the first Latina president of the United States.
Illegal alien.
Non-existent. There's no such thing as an illegal human being, and we are no longer aliens, as per your friend Joe Biden.
Ted Cruz.
How did he get a Harvard degree? Then again, yes.
Latinx.
Look, I have all kinds of respect for Latinos and Latinas as we're figuring out how to identify ourselves. And we are very clear. I mean, I don't use the term Hispanic. to be like, will not use it. So I understand the desire for Latinx. It doesn't roll off my tongue, but that's okay. I try to be super inclusive. But I also have talked to transgender Latinos and Latinas, and they actually love being gendered. So I think Latinx is kind of easy at the same time that it's giving visibility. So I'm fluid on that.
I'll take it. Last one. J-Lo and Affleck.
Oh, God.
I know.
Great wedding
I
dress.
saved the toughest one for last.
Great wedding dress. You know what? I'm all for love.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it from the facial reaction.
I'm all.
This is a safe space.
I mean, if they can find love at this age, I'm like all for it. Yeah. I hope they're having great time under the covers.
That was a CNN diplomatic answer. All right. This is a segment. It's the final segment. It's getting to know the guest, right?
Okay.
And you're always blunt and honest about it. Very quick. Your go-to song when you need a pick-me-up.
I have several, but one that when I think of it, I remember being in the subway and literally dancing salsa in the subway, and it's Vivir Mi Vida by Mark Anthony. It's just such an uplifting salsa song, and I'm a salsa girl, a merengue girl. And so, yeah, that and anything by Celia Cruz or Juan Luis Guerra or Bob Marley.
Eclectic.
Or Pink Floyd. Okay. Or Led Zeppelin. No, not all. Okay.
Go-to movie that you'll watch that isn't critically acclaimed, but damn it, you love it. And it makes you happy.
Oh, God. I hate to reveal.
Reveal.
It's complicated.
Oh, the one with Meryl Streep?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
I'm learning things. I'm learning things today. I did not know. Would have never thought. You giving me 100 guesses. Would not have thought it's complicated. Is Maria's happy book? Okay. Your go-to advice when a young person says, Maria, how do I make it?
I would say trust your gut. You know, you just really need to just constantly be going back to that. I mean, everybody's afraid. That's what I try to tell young people. Everybody's scared. Everybody is scared.
That's right.
Everybody is just like insecure. So trust your gut and just go for the ride. We need them. I mean, that's the other thing I tell them is that we need them to trust their gut. We need them to bring that inner voice out so that we are getting better as a country.
All right, here's one. It's going to be some fighting words.
Ooh, boy.
Go-to journalist.
Oh, man.
Julio, your friend, is right there.
I was going to
Your
say,
co-host
I
is
would
right
probably
there.
say Julio Ricardo Varela is the guy who I just kind of like, hey, what's up with this? Let's just like the check-in, like what's up? And that we're those people who are sending each other like headlines and stories. And did you see this? So that's my colleague.
High praise, Julio. Venmo, Maria, right now. This is a very serious one. I rarely have an encounter with a Pulitzer Prize winner. And you won a Pulitzer Prize for the audio series Suave,
Correct.
right? So you are now Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Maria Hinojosa. What helps you give less fucks in life? Turning 60 or winning a Pulitzer? On the fast track towards giving no fucks, what accelerates it?
Dude.
Which one?
Probably the age.
Yeah.
Because you really just, as you get older and you are able to realize that there's nothing to be afraid of because it's just what's going to happen is going to happen as long as you work hard because I'm an immigrant. But winning a Pulitzer, I mean, that definitely just was, it pushed up the, and you're right. To be honest with you, I don't give a fuck. I give so many fucks. I give so many fucks that sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, how is this happening in our country? How is this possible? How are we going backwards? How is this? So I give so many fucks. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't care what y'all think. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I trust my gut.
I've told you this before. I've never smoked weed, but if I ever do, I'll smoke it with you. And I think you should take your Pulitzer and we should smoke weed on the grave of Samuel Huntington.
Oh my God, just that image. I love it. Are you going to find out where he's buried?
Yeah, we'll find out. It's fine. I'm sure Julio knows. Probably somewhere in Harvard. Julio's a Harvard guy.
Okay. just the thought of walking through a Harvard cemetery, but with my Pulitzer.
Pulitzer and on the
so,
grave
you know,
of
we'll be
Huntington.
with the Pulitzer. We'll be like, back, star.
Maria Hinojosa, you are a gem. Thank you so much for joining us. You are the first guest, and I could not be happier they're here. But most importantly, folks, you got to buy her book, Once I Was You. It's available both in paperback, hardcover, and this is for young adults. It's available wherever fine books written by invaders are sold. Maria Hinojosa.
Thank you, Waj.
Well, that's all for today. But before we go, here are my 3 Waj takeaways to help you become a better, smarter American. Takeaway number 1. Immigrants make America more delicious. Takeaway number 2. Immigrants are people. They have hopes, they have dreams, and they're trying. And takeaway number 3. If you want to light it up, join Maria and me at the grave of the late Professor Samuel Huntington. This is Waj Invades America. I'm Wajahat Ali.